We're going to begin, though, with President Trump's visit to that Boeing plant in St. Louis, Missouri. The president there to tout tax cuts with business leaders after touring the plant. Let's take a listen.
6 months ago, I promised that we would cut taxes to bring Main Street roaring all the way back. And we did. We helped Wall Street. We helped Main Street. We helped everybody. And all of that money that went into the pockets of people, thousands and thousands of dollars each, they're very, very happy about.
Now, we should note that Boeing has been the biggest loser in the stock market, at least the Dow Jones Industrial Average, since the tariffs were announced. And more recently, they've taken more pressure because of their relationship with China. But I want to forget about these tariffs still on aluminum, because it's just small potatoes with respect to the real trade war. The drums are beating. That would be between the United States and China, and that's why Boeing is a proxy for that war. Joining me now to help break it all down, Fox News political contributor Tammy Bruce, also Independent Women's Voice president, Gina Loudon, Donald J. Trump for President Inc. Advisory Board, and Gayle Trotter, attorney and contributor at The Hill. Here's the thing, Tammy. Last August, Robert Lighthizer, U.S. Trade Representative, initiated what they call a Section 301 investigation into China's trade practices, which we all know have been egregiously unfair.
Right.
He came up apparently with the idea of leveling $30 billion in sanctions and tariffs against them. Apparently, President Trump wants $60 billion. The stakes are obviously high. But the question is, if we don't do it now, then when do we ever push back on this?
Yeah, and look, with President Trump, it's a very different dynamic, I think, than with any other president, where you would have a distinct decision made and penalties or tariffs in place. President Trump sees everything as a negotiation. We know that we want things to be fair. What he said in Oslo at that meeting was he wants America first, but not America alone. And so he knows what the problems might be. And there could be, of course, some pushback, even though China is the worst offender. Look, we've made this world an interactive world for a reason. We thought that being more involved with us would tame them a little bit, whereas, in fact, we've ended up being the can that everyone kicks on the road. So for us, I think, and for President Trump, what we have to realize is that while these things might sound frightening at first, or what we need to do to become to have the environment be more fair, is that it's going to be less of a dramatic kind of slap against any country, even China, but the negotiation for what is going to be good for both countries, right, but certainly better for us, so that it is a fair framework. And that, I think, is not what people are thinking right now. They're not anticipating that, and they should. Well, certainly the stock market may not be anticipating that, Gina, but here's the deal. President Trump is saying, listen, we just can't continue to have a relationship where it's a 350 billion annual trade deficit. That's not a true fair trade relationship. It's not symbiotic. It's obviously all of the wealth is leaving our country. And while Wall Street may applaud the money coming back in ownership of hotels like the Waldorf Astoria, I think President Trump thinks that's a bad deal.
You know, I've studied most of my life. I've studied business psychology, Charles, and I can tell you that so much of negotiations, as every business person who's done a negotiation knows, is about the psychology of it. And there's a lot of that going on here. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is playing some kind of head games, because I really don't think that's what he does. I think what he does is he makes very educated calculations. And so far, at least to date, his track record is pretty darn good, not just in the private sector, but also as president, accomplishing more than really any other president we've seen in recent history, if ever. And so I think we kind of have to trust the instincts of Trump, and to quote some good people, let Trump be Trump, because I think that's what he does best, and that's why people elected this business leader.
And I think everyone, Gayle, agrees that China has been a serious offender, and they've gotten over in this relationship to the degree where it's unsustainable, at least from our point of view. I should let the audience know China's GDP for last year finally came in this morning, 6.9%, the first year-over-year increase since 2010. Industrial production for the first 2 months of this year, 7.2%. The Street thought it would be 5.9%. Xi has become an emperor. He's consolidating all of their agencies. He's empowering their central bank. He is preparing for an economic war, while people in this country are cowering at the thought of somehow China punishing us. They sold us $500 billion worth of stuff. Who else would they sell that to, Gayle?
That's right. Well, the question becomes, who is going to blink? And President Trump is not the blinking type. Now, Dr. Gina has the psychology of business. I can talk to you about the legal strategy. There are significant legal countermeasures that President Trump can take if China decides to retaliate against Boeing or any of the other U.S. companies that are selling products into China. There's a pending U.S. intellectual property investigation going on right now, and China's investments in the United States could be restricted by U.S. regulators. Their access to U.S. capital markets could be restricted. This is not the only thing that President Trump can do in terms of the tariffs. There are other additional measures that can be taken by the U.S., and President Trump is not going to blink on this.
You know, and we should point out that by some estimates, China's theft of intellectual trade is up to $600 billion annually. I want to bring in Shah Gilani, Capital Wave forecast editor. Shah, Wall Street, the reaction to this. Okay, I thought the reaction to potential tariffs on steel and aluminum was over the top. I thought it was a negotiating thing from the very beginning and would not necessarily include Canada and Mexico. We can no longer afford to look the other way. And I will acknowledge Boeing was hammered today, in part because it's estimated they're going to sell China over $1 trillion worth of planes in the next 2 decades. We want to see that happen, but by the same token, we are looking for some semblance of fair trade.
Well, I agree. We were looking for that. I don't know we're going to get that, Charles, because what's happened is that I think investors thought this was going to be a shot across the bow and things would move on. But this is not. The president has campaigned on fighting trade against illegal and improper trade against the Chinese, against the Americans. That China last year had a $375 billion record trade surplus with the United States. The intellectual property theft, the technology transfer that the Chinese require of U.S. firms doing business there, these are all problems that President Trump campaigned on. And so the fact that he's bringing these up now, the fact that this shot across the bow with steel and aluminum, shook investors, is now rattling down to the fact that this isn't just saber rattling. This is actually probably going to turn into some kind of war.